Awesome. So we are recording and we are here today with Tarna. So Tarna, I'd love for you to tell everyone a little bit about you, what it is that you do, and the story to how you got there.
Okay. So my name is Tarna. I am an Ayurvedic practitioner and I'm also still a respiratory therapist. And I'm going to back up because I think probably a lot of people are going to hear this and say, what? So Ayurveda is, it's the oldest system of medicine, comes from India. A lot of traditional Chinese medicine they have a lot of crossover because they're in the same region. So focus on prevention, but also bringing back into balance when there is disease and especially chronic disease and things like that. So a lot of health and wellness, but a little more on the more focused side, if that makes sense. So I have my business. I am mostly local in Western Colorado. I have clients that I go on a year-long journey with. So they join my group and we're there together for a year and do coaching and a lot of, just very titrated to them, health and wellness. And then I also work at the hospital PRN, which is about a day a week-ish. And then I do some other contract respiratory stuff. So that's a bit about me, where I am. My business, Lotus Honey Health. So if anybody is curious about it, and want to learn more about Ayurveda, so that answers that what. How I got there. So how far back do you want me to go?
As far back as you're comfortable going. I mean, I love diving deep into people's stories. I think that's part of what makes these really, really powerful, but totally whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, I could stay surface, but I feel like that would not be being true to my work and myself. So I don't know if it's where I started necessarily, but when I was 13, my grandfather passed away of COPD. And I would go down there every weekend and I would drain the water out of his oxygen tube.
Real quick before you continue, COPD, what's that?
So COPD is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. It's a lot of times smokers, somebody who's smoked their whole life, they end up with COPD. And it's really more than just one disease. It's multiple lung diseases. So it can be, some people will hear chronic bronchitis, bronchiectasis, emphysema. You might hear those terms. Emphysema, it's like the short version is for all of those is it feels like you can't get enough air because you can't get the air out. And so that's what obstructive pulmonary diseases are, is where you can't get that air out. So you have a cup that is maybe 3/4 full and you only have about a quarter that you could keep filling because you just can't dump this 3/4 out. We all have a little bit of what's called our residual volume. Like if you were to dump the cup out, there's always a drop. We all have that. But for somebody with COPD, I mean, it's where their level of fullness varies depending on the person. So a lot of times you're looking at, it's basically suffocating to death. Like it's a very slow, takes years sort of process. So anyways, as a 13-year-old, I didn't understand all of that part of it. I just knew my grandpa was in and out of the hospital. I would go up there and I would stay into the nights at the hospital with him and I would just hang out with him at the hospital. I remember watching the Olympics one year. I don't know why that's relevant, but just watching the Olympics in the hospital, in his hospital room with him one time. And he also liked to watch boxing, but he would watch a lot of TV because, even getting up to go to the bathroom would wind him and wear him out. And so when I would go down on the weekends, he would get, a lot of times when somebody's on oxygen, the amount of oxygen will increase. And as it increases, you have to have like a humidifier to help kind of moisturize the nose. And so water gets trapped. So I remember I drained the water all the way back and I would sit there and I would thump on his chest, which is a thing that respiratory therapists do. Didn't know that then, but yeah. And I remember one time he stopped breathing altogether and I had to call 911. I couldn't get him on the floor because I was 13. I was pretty small compared to him, and he turned blue. And I called my stepdad. My stepdad came down, got him on the floor, got CPR. He lived that time, right? But when I look back at that, I wonder if that's kind of maybe where I started really with looking at taking care of people. But I did end up, it wasn't until years later, so I had a lot of trauma in that period of my life as well. And I I've talked about that elsewhere, but I had a lot of like abuse and sexual abuse, things like that. And so by the time I got to being like teenager, graduating high school, I was in this place where I was like, I have no ambition. I don't know what I want to do. I'm, yeah, I don't, I got married. And 2 months later, the guy I got married to and I had twins. Like, or we got pregnant with twins. We didn't have them 2 months later. We got pregnant with them. And we were like states away. And when I had them, I had this like, oh, I have a purpose. And so I think that was like a little spark. Well, I started working at this job where I was taking care of adults with developmental disabilities. And through taking care of these adults with developmental disabilities, so I had a couple of girls who had cerebral palsy. But one of the girls I was taking care of at one point ended up in the hospital. And her respiratory therapist came in and I got to talking to him a little bit. And I was like, huh, that sounds interesting. It wasn't until later we ended up getting divorced, their dad and I. And I ended up having another kid. I ended up in a women's protective service with my history and the trauma, like that kind of fits a pattern that is seen a lot, right? Well, while I was in that women's protective service with now 3 kids, somebody came and talked to us about the college and scholarships and respiratory therapy. And I was like, oh, well, that sounds good. That sounds like something I can do that will actually help, not just. So backing up before the 3rd child with the twins, I was single mom. I was working 2 jobs. I was working at a gas station and I was working at a call center. So in the day I was at the call center, overnight I was at the gas station. I had maybe about 4 hours in between that I would try to sleep and be with my twins. And I still could not keep the lights on. And I wasn't doing drugs. I was busting my butt. Sorry, I don't know if I can cuss, but trying to to keep lights on and still sometimes having to light my house with tea light candles. So fast forwarding to this opportunity to go to school and do something that was going to be a little more than just survival was a new concept. And being able to bring in a little bit more money to be able to actually support my children. So I started doing that. And at that time, my brain was like, I'm the only one that they can rely on. That's it. All they have is me. So I would date guys, but I never really gave them much of a chance to fill that role because I just didn't have faith that they would. And I didn't trust anybody else to take care of my kids like I would. And so because of that kind of piece of it, I had an interest in holistic health. I had an interest in kind of doing a little more, but at the time, my mindset was I have to work a job. I have to be at a job forever and ever because that was the generation that was before me, and that's the way that you provide for your kids. So I went to school. I graduated. My husband and I, that we got together and we had a very on and off again relationship. And part of that was because of that mindset of, no, I have to take care of it. I don't trust you to take care of it. And part of it was both of us really needed to grow up. But my husband, before he was my husband, he wouldn't hold a job. And he couldn't work for somebody else. And I thought something was like wrong with him. This was my mindset, right? It was wrong with him because like, why can't you hold a job? Why can't you just work like everybody else? And then he started his business and he has a fence business and he still has that fence business because he had this like, no, I'm not settling. And that was always his mindset of not settling. And it shifted me into this, like seeing something more than just a little bit above survival, right? Now I'm seeing this perspective of, hey, I can actually set my own glass ceiling, so to speak. That's kind of cool. And how can I do this while helping other people? Because I also, during this time period, started to realize that a lot of my respiratory care stuff is symptom management. I'm putting somebody on a ventilator to treat them, and they need that in that moment. I mean, they can't breathe. They need the ventilator. Otherwise, it's, so it's sometimes you need that emergency, right? You need that emergency treatment. You need that first aid. You need that Band-Aid. But I also started to kind of feel like I wasn't making the difference I really wanted to make in my soul. And it started to be less about just surviving for the kids because they were good. They're taken care of. And then realizing that I could do more. And so I got into yoga when the twins were born, but I started to get more serious, took a yoga teacher training, and she handed us a book and said, "Oh, here's a little bit on Ayurveda, have fun if, and then moved on." Well, I devoured the book and it connected with me and I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is the thing. It makes so much sense. It's so logical. And so I pursued my master's as an Ayurvedic practitioner. And then, like I said, the inspiration from my husband, that's where I kind of came to that full circle of starting my own business. And then I learned I had to learn how to start and run a business, which is a whole other skill set. So, yeah, that was kind of long. But yeah,
No, that was perfect. And I know you had mentioned that when you and your husband kind of got together, you guys were kind of on and off for a little bit. At what point, like, was he already doing the business when you guys decided to get married and kind of do that? Or did that happen later? Like, go a little bit more into that.
we did everything backwards.
Yeah.
So, so at the time, so he and I got together. My twins were 4 at the time. And we would break up and then we would date other people but we would always end up getting back together. And so during that period, there was a lot of me learning to respect myself because I didn't have that. And that was still something that, it wasn't like I had my twins had this mystical moment of everything's better. It was this, oh, this is my job. This is my responsibility. I'm going to go up. Nobody's going to hurt my twins. They're like my boys. This is going to be. And then I had to live that and walk that. And through all of that, like learning to have some self-respect. So there were times when he would cross boundaries and I was like, yeah, no, this isn't happening. Or, we would have this on off. And anyway, so we now have 3 kids together. So I have 5 total. So that third kid was his also. And then, but like I said, we were back and forth at that time. And then we were actually broken up. And I had finally reached a point where I was like, you know what? I'm not dating anybody for a while. I'm going to spend some time by myself, which was hard for me at that time because I had just gotten to a point of learning to love and respect myself and honoring that this body, this life is a gift. Just like, I want to take care of my kids. They're definitely a gift, but I realized that whatever creator you believe in, this is a gift. To be here is actually a gift. And I needed to start taking care of myself. And so I got to a point where I was like, I don't want to date anybody else. So I had 2 boyfriends right before that, like that lasted about a month each. Like it was not the best decision making. Okay. And at the end of the second relationship, he and I obviously had sex because that's how babies are made. And yeah, well, I was close to graduating with respiratory and found out, oh, I'm pregnant. So, and it was, very much his. So this was our second child. So we ended up, we got back together at that point, and we moved from Texas to Colorado during this span of like the next decade. We moved from Texas to Colorado. We bought a house. And then right before our daughter was born, finally decided to actually officially get married because I told him otherwise I was going to change my name back to my maiden name and just give her my last name because it already been, we've been together now on and off, that on and off period included, 18, almost 19 years. So the last decade has been pretty solid and great. But we had a lot of learning struggles and we both had a lot of growing up to do. So that was kind of, everything was backwards. You're supposed to get married, then buy the house, then have the kids. And we had the kids and then we bought the house and then we got married. So
Hey, you know what? In today's world, all of it goes. So
yeah.
it's so funny because I think sometimes we tell these stories and it's like, oh, I feel like I did everything backwards or I did this kind of wonky, but it's like,
Yeah.
like everybody does things their own flair, their own way. And that's, as long as it all turns out okay in the end, that's what matters, right?
Right. And to answer your question about his business. So during this period of this on
Mhm,
and off, he had a mentor who had a fence company back in
mhm,
Texas. And so that's where he was learning the skills and doing all the things. I was still primary breadwinner at the time. We moved to Colorado, and then I was working at two different hospitals because that's what I was used to doing and what I felt needed to be done. And again, not trusting, not letting him step into that more masculine role.
mhm,
But when we moved to Colorado is when his business really, like, I would say, was officially, like, he was doing contract and he was doing it on his own in Texas a little bit more before we left. But
mhm,
that's whenever he really like solidified. And at one point we had another shift in our relationship of where I quit working because
mhm,
our now 10-year-old was going into pre-K. And that was about the time whenever I went to school and I was getting my master's because I could not do anything with myself. But we lived in the middle of nowhere, and that power dynamic and that shift and letting go of the control,
mm.
so hard. It was so difficult. But I will say I have become such a better mom by stepping into more of my feminine and being able to not have to take control in that way.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a really hard thing for a lot of women, especially women that are in business.
Hmm.
It's like having to juggle because being in business is more of a masculine role, right? And there's ways to do it with feminine energy, but it is a masculine role. And so I think a lot of times women struggle with like that balance of like how do we retain our femininity while we're still making money and still providing and still, creating opportunities for our family. What do you feel like really helped you kind of break out of that to be able to step into that femininity and allow him to take that on?
Mm. So I was um, one of the hospitals that I was working at. Well, so I was down to where I was working at one hospital, and the environment that I was working in, it was a great hospital, but the environment for our department was very much like a like the whenever you hear the term good old boy toxic, kind of like that. I had a guy who would yell down the hallway and just start screaming at people, or who would like talk about my breasts to a patient, and it was like that was okay and that was acceptable. And I it was just I had a lot of friction in that regard. Then also we bought that house that I mentioned was kind of in the middle of nowhere. And so it was about 45 minutes out of town, and my son going into pre-K. So I had to be there. He was only in school for 3 hours a day, and that's a 45-minute drive. And so I originally tried to go PRN there, and they were like, well, we don't have any PRN anymore because we lost somebody. And so originally that was the plan. And I was just going to move PRN, but we lost a staff member. And so that wasn't an option. And it was either that or I was going to end up having to leave. And so I was having this stress and this anxiety and this, like, I felt really trapped in a lot of ways. And I can't say I've ever felt this way at any other position. And I think it's not just the position and the environment there, but also life circumstances too. And I remember it was the kid's first day of school. I was in my scrubs. I'd made my lunch. I was trying to figure things out still, so I hadn't made a decision yet. And I was like, well, I want to at least see my kids on the bus because this is his first day of school ever. And, so I want to at least see him on the bus. So my husband was going to drive me into town to go to work that day. And he was just going to drop me off. And I watched the kids get on the bus, and he was like, okay, are you ready? And I was like, yeah, maybe let's go eat breakfast first. And he just looks at me and he says, okay. So we go to eat breakfast, and I have like this anxiety, like so bad that I can't hardly eat my food. And I'm just stressing. I'm just like inside, and I don't even know how to articulate and say the things. And he's just there and just like, okay, he's just holding space for me. He's just being there. And he is very supportive and very much like, I think that you're limiting yourself. He's told me that a ton. Well, not so much now, but then in a lot of areas, and he was very right. But he didn't say it in a judging way, but just yeah, you can totally do whatever you want to do. Anyway, so we're having this breakfast, and then I get this text message. I told him I was going to be late, and I get a text message that says, "Do you have any idea when you're going to come in?" And I was like, "No, not yet," because I didn't know how to tell them what was going on either. So, so I just messaged him like, "No, not yet, but I'll let you know when I find something out." And so we have breakfast, and I'm like, "Well, let me just ride around with you while you do some estimates." And he looks at me again, and he's like, "Okay." So I'm riding around with him, and I'm like, "I think I just need to quit. Like now, not like in 2 weeks. Like I just need to quit." And he's like, "Well, that would make my life a lot easier." So, and I'm like, "Okay, done." And so I sent a message and said, "I need to just come in tomorrow and get my things. I just need to resign." And I had this like, oh. So that's where it shifted of me letting go of that, and instead of like fighting to hold on to it. But then I had this period of like, I'm not used to not being in control, and I am struggling with letting him be in control of all the finances, all the money. I don't have my own money coming in. And I had to do some things. I couldn't just like sit at home while my son was at school. So that's where I was glad I had started school, but I still had a lot of struggle with that. But that's that day, I would say, is where it started. But it took me like a good few years to finally like, okay, I have to do something for myself, and recognizing that like I have to have some sort of, even if it's a little bit of income, I need that fulfillment for me, but also letting him be in charge of, okay, this is the bills, these are the bills that we're going to pay, this is the service that we're going to go with because of XYZ. And I would still do, my part of, okay, you know what? I'm just going to do the research and hand it to you. And I mean, that sounds so freeing now, but at the time it was like, no, we need this and we need to do this. And this is the thing that we have to do. And this is what has to be done. And, and he's like, I'm not going to just work and not have a say in the decisions. So that was another like dynamic shift, I guess, if you will. And so now it's a lot more like mutual with all of that. So yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yes. And then so then now you're home and you're going to school. So was it an online program? Because you said you were like 45 minutes away from everything.
Yeah, so it was largely online, but I did have clinicals once a semester. There was 2 weeks of clinicals that I would have. So yeah, but largely online. And then I did pick up a bookkeeping job. There was a small town that was like 10 minutes away, and it was just a little town with one little store. And I walked in, and I was like, "Are y'all still looking for a bookkeeper?" And he's like, "Yeah. Do you know anybody?" And I was like, "I used to do that a long time ago, but I really don't want to do it." And he's like, "Okay, well, if you did do it, how much would you want?" And I was like, $30 an hour, because that's what I was making at the hospital at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And before I quit. And I was like, $30 an hour. And the guy was like, "Okay." And I'm like, "But I don't want to do it." And he was like, "I'll do $30 an hour." And I was like, "Okay." So then I ended up doing that, which at max took 5 hours a month.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I felt like I needed to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's funny. So the school that you did, so it was a master's program for is it Ayurvedic? How do you pronounce
So,
it?
oh,
Ah,
your Veda. Veda is like, it means knowledge.
okay.
So it literally means this, it's the science of life is what it translates to. But Veda is like knowledge. So I
Okay.
like to say like, your Veda? Like your Veda. But yeah, it's Ayurveda and integrative health is my master's.
Okay. I've never even heard of a program. Like I've heard of that stuff, but I didn't even realize that was like a whole master's program, which is really funny to me. So what did that look like? You said that there was clinicals. I don't know too much about it besides there's like specific recipes and things that you can make that, are helpful, herbs, tinctures, stuff like that. So like what did that training look like? Because when I'm thinking of going to like a school for medicine or health, I'm thinking like a doctor school.
Yeah, well, and actually they do have a PhD program, which I keep contemplating over and over, but I'm like, ugh. So yeah, so it's online. There were live meetings that we would have, and we would have we'd have a classroom that we could watch at our own pace, but within the week. And then we would have at least a couple, sometimes 3 webinars that were mandatory every week. And we would have a Western medicine physician, and we would have a Vaidya. So a Vaidya is an Indian doctor of Ayurveda. So we would have a Western medicine perspective, and then the next one would be like the Vaidya, or sometimes it would be a really long webinar and they'd do both. And so it started with, hey, these are the basics, these are the principles, this is the general like concepts. And then it went down into, okay, so osteoarthritis, let's break that down. And then we would go into different organ systems and kind of study it from both sides and both perspectives. So yeah, so I mean, we talked about everything from, cardiopulmonary to like cancer to, so it was pretty immersive and pretty in depth. And like they have a bachelor's program too, and the bachelor's focuses just on the diet lifestyle routine, because kind of if you can get that piece, a lot of the rest of it falls into place a little easier, but sometimes you do need a little more intensive treatment to balance things out. So yeah, and then clinicals is going in person, and there's a thing called pulse diagnosis. So you like take the pulse, and as a respiratory therapist, I would take the pulse to poke it with, a needle to get an arterial blood gas. The nurses do everything else with the veins. Our respiratory therapists do your artery. Hurts. So used to taking the pulse one way, so it was kind of a retraining of my brain. And so now whenever I do have to do an arterial blood gas on somebody at the hospital, I'm like, oh, and I also feel these other things. Like, but I don't say that because that's not what they're there for. But yeah, so you would go and then you would have a full consultation and make their recommendations. But you get like, it's kind of as a group. Like, so if you think of in the hospitals, if you've ever gone into one where they have like fellows, like they have a bunch of doctors going through, it's kind of like that, where you have like a bunch of people, but it's not quite so room to room. It's more they're coming in to get the consultation. So yeah.
Cool. So was it like a local program then that you did?
No, I had to go out to Iowa. So I live in Western Colorado,
wow.
and I had to go to Fairfield, Iowa. And so that's where I would go to do my clinicals. So yeah, and it's really wonderful. It's
how often did you have to do the clinicals?
So it's once a semester we would travel. Now, some of the time, because when I started, it was at COVID period. So the first, I think, two or three semesters, we actually got to do them online. So some people were there in person, and we would kind of Zoom in, and we'd get to watch like the interview. We would get to ask our questions, and then the online groups would get to kind of have breakout groups, and then you'd have the in-person group, and then and so anything that we came up with online, we could share with the people who were there. And then they would talk to the person and kind of go with the recommendations that way. And so, but for the questions, like we could still ask them questions even though we were online. So they set it up as, as best they could. And I thought it was really beneficial. Yeah. So it was pretty cool.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you finished that program, and then what happened?
So let me back up, because I also remember that yoga teacher training I was talking about.
Yeah.
So COVID happened and put that on hold, but I was doing my 200 and 300 hours. So if you're for yoga teacher trainings, you have a 200, you have a 300, you have 500, which is 2 and 3 together. So usually people will do their 200 hour, and then they'll do a 300 hour, and that gets them their 500. I did mine kind of on top of each other on accident. But because I signed up for the 300, and the teacher that I signed up with, she's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. You've been doing this, a long time. And I just think that you would benefit, and you can do it, but it is a lot. So I was doing them consecutively. And so she ended up, right before COVID happened, she got cancer. So she didn't make it to the last class that we were supposed to have before COVID started. And then COVID started. So then she tried to do everything online. And it was a lot. And so I was working with her that way, and I started teaching up in this little small town that I mentioned. So I started teaching yoga during that time period too. And then to finish off my training, I went to, while I was still in school for Ayurveda, I went to, she had an immersion. I said, well, I would love to, but at that time I just had my daughter, who was not even 6 months old yet. And I was like, but I would have to have her. She goes, well, bring her and you can stay with me. And I'm like, for a month. So I stayed with her for a month, and I did my yoga teacher training with a baby at my breast. And just, yeah. And so, but then I also had the opportunity to teach the Ayurvedic portion of her training, and I was able to go in a little deeper because, here I was in school for it. So
Yeah.
that was a good start, but that's what I started doing when I got done with school too, is I started doing workshops at like the yoga studios. So I started with that, and I opened my office. I remember I graduated, and on my way back, and we were driving back, and I was like, okay, I want an office that is big enough that I could maybe teach a couple people yoga if I need to, but also I can have my consultations, and it's going to be like a nice, it's going to be under $500, and it's going to be, anyway. Then I got home, and on Facebook, there was this office. Everything else had been like $600 and up that I had looked for. $350. And it had wood floors that were like perfect for yoga. And yeah, and I'm actually releasing that space at the end of this month. But I've had it for a little over about 3 years now. A little over. And so I'm actually releasing that space. But that was the first thing I did, was I got my office, and I felt so official. And I started seeing clients in my office, and started with that and doing one-on-ones. I do a lot of like shows, like, so we'd have holistic health fairs and things like that, and biz to biz kind of, just like where vendors have booths and you can go kind of visit. So I do a lot of those. And now I've started to do a little more, not private, but a little more intimate talks and workshops. Like I did for Coldwell Realty. I did a talk just a couple weeks ago. I did, there's a little functional medicine doctor. She does a thing, it's a health fair that she does every year. And it's a little more intimate. It's a smaller group. And so I've been doing more and more of those. So yeah.
That's so cool. So you got this office and you built up your business. I mean, and it sounds like you were pretty successful. You were going to different fairs, you were doing all these different things. So how did you juggle that with having a slew of small children that you're also taking care of at the same time?
So it's hard. One of my reasons and my motivation for wanting to do my own business goes back to like, and it's almost like I look back and I think about it as when I had the twins, and I was like, okay, this is, I have, here's my purpose. And then I had my third child, and I was like, I have to do better. And so then I went to respiratory, and then, then with my daughter, I was like, she's our only girl. She's my last one. I want to be present for her more than what I was able to be with the other ones. And so I really made that a focus. And my husband helps a lot with, if I have the fairs and the shows and things like that. Or if I have, like a podcast interview. So the 15-year-old is going to watch her at the park while the 10-year-old has baseball practice right now. But sometimes I'll have calls and they're online, or I'll be doing, group coaching, and here she comes, and she likes to climb in my lap and say hi. And there's a part of me that kind of fought with that a bit, like, no, you're not supposed to have, that's not how it's supposed to be. But also that's the whole reason why I'm doing my own business. That was one of my motivators, is I want to be able to have my schedule and be home with her. And I want to help other women to know that they have the potential to do what they want to do as well, because that goes back to our health. So it's, it's not just about diet and routine. That's what I mean when I say lifestyle is, how do you want your life to look like? And for me, like, and that love and that feeling, that peace is a huge part. And it's very, what we call sattvic in Ayurveda. So very balancing and uplifting. So kind of bringing in that higher self. And so, it's getting to spend that time with her and getting to be with her, and is more important. And then getting to help everybody else. That makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. And I love that that's like, I agree. As a mom who's running a business and doing all those things, it's like, what a blessing that we get to be here with our kids while we're doing all of those things instead of the alternative.
Mm-hmm.
And I know personally, like, we homeschool as well. And so one of the things that like I get all the time is like, how do you run a business and homeschool 4 kids and do this and do that? And it's like, how do you guys not? Like, I have full control over my schedule. It's so easy, right? Like it's we don't have to worry about waking up and getting the kids on a bus at the right time. We don't have to like worry about all those different things. But I think like when we figure out what's that schedule that works for us, like what is the goal and what are we actually trying to accomplish with our family, and then we live that out, it just flows so much smoother. And I think that that's probably what you're experiencing, just being able to like, I have the luxury of doing this and, you know, dealing with how we want to raise our kids and how we want to raise our family.
Yeah. And I think prioritizing too, like, so realizing that,
Hmm.
hey, this is my priority, and cutting out some of the outside noise of the shoulds
Hmm.
has been a huge transition for me recently, and recognizing where I might let other people's expectations, kind of dominate. And I'm in a place now where I'm at, okay, I'm like, this is my priority. This
Mm.
is my child. If you have a problem with my child popping in on a call, we probably aren't going to be the best fit to work together.
Hmm.
And being okay with that, versus, oh no, I want to make everybody happy. No, I want to spend time with my child, and and
Yeah.
I want to help you. I want to help you in every way that I can. But also, do you want to be helped? And is this going to be a blocker for you? And if
Mhm.
so, I can definitely recommend somebody else that, but I notice, like, if I recognize that too, whenever we go eat someplace with
Mhm.
my twins. The mom that I was like, no, you need to sit down. Shh, shh, shh. You can't, stop. Don't do that. Don't, you got to, no, this is not how
Yeah.
you act in a restaurant. And the mom that I am now, I'm like, my son's over there, driving the car. I'm like, he's in a seat. I mean, he's happy.
Right.
He's not doing it so loud that people can't talk. It just
Yeah.
might be a little bit annoying, but it's okay because it's, they can still talk, they can still function.
Yeah.
It's not like if it's excessively loud, I may be like, okay, keep it down a little bit. But
Yeah.
it's not, I don't have to I'm not trying to control them like the
Mhm.
mom that I was whenever my twins were younger. And that's another piece of that letting go of control, is it's changed the parent that I am.
Mm.
I Not intentionally, but I mean for the better.
Yeah. No, I see that a lot too. I think there is a great, I forget who said it. I was talking with one of the moms that I did an interview with, and she was saying how like entrepreneurship is one of the things that you do to just like expedite growth and maturity rapidly, but so is motherhood, you know? And so it's like both motherhood and entrepreneurship are, you know, and so when you're doing both of them together, it's like, get out of here. You just zoom right through everybody else's
Yeah.
evolution.
Well,
Yes.
and so when I started school for my
Mhm.
master's degree, that particular school, one of the requirements was learning transcendental meditation.
Mhm.
So transcendental meditation, you do it twice a day for 20 minutes.
Mhm.
And at that time,
You're like, I
trying to
don't have time
find
for this.
20 minutes to myself, I couldn't even go to the bathroom without, an audience. Like, and so I do remember, like, when I very first started, I remember there was one time I was like, I'm trying to meditate. Like, I stopped in the middle of it. I'm like, I'm meditating. You guys need to get out and go in there and go ask your dad because I am miserable. And then finally we agreed that maybe I should just put a sign on the door. I'm like, well, I told them. But I also, with meditation, it's not, there's that control piece creeping in, because when you meditate
Mm.
too, and that's another thing that I really love working with people and teaching them to just even do, like, a 2-minute meditation, is because we do have this idea of it should be like this. It needs to be a calm, quiet place. It needs to be, and
Mm.
no, it's just a matter of like taking a moment, allowing the outside world to be the outside world, however that shows up. And then
Mm.
I can filter, my kids are fighting. Okay. Is it fire, flood, or blood? It's not. That's okay. I can let them fight. I can give them the tool. I can just let them use their tools to work it
Mhm.
out, or I'll deal with it when I get done. And just being okay with that too. So it doesn't mean, like, if something gets escalated or something, because most of my children are boys. So there's being intelligent with it, but yeah, and recognizing that really what does not need my attention and what does not need my stress has been helpful. But yeah, some of that was the going to school while being at home with them, and the having to meditate because that was like a requirement. And
Mhm.
yeah, it was interesting because I thought, I was like, I'm good. I can do YouTube meditations. And then yeah.
10 minutes into it, "Stop it! I'm
Uh-huh.
trying to do this."
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. We are all guilty of that for sure. But I love that lesson too of just like whatever is happening, we can get to it later,
Mhm.
or they'll figure it out. Like why are we stressing and making this big ordeal when it doesn't have to be? And sometimes it's like we have to force ourselves to just let it be. There's a great principle in coaching too, which is like when you're talking to somebody, if you feel like there's still more that they're not getting out, just let them have another 7 seconds, you know, and most of the time they'll start talking again, you know? And it's like that silence. People just they need to fill that silence. And sometimes the strongest thing we can do is just allow the silence to exist, and let other people fill it if they need to and hold
Like
that space for them. But
like the Alanis Morissette song. I don't know if you're
I've never heard it. What is it?
oh no. So there's a Alanis Morissette song, and she's how does it go? I'm trying to remember the part, but she goes, um she says something about silent. I can't even remember which song it is, which is weird because I love Alanis Morissette. But anyway, she pauses and there's like this silence.
Hmm.
And then she goes, did you think about your bills, your ex, your deadlines, or when you're going to die? Or did you long for the next distraction? But it's after this pause in the middle of the song. And it's like, I always like, even when I was a kid and I would hear that song, I was like, I enjoyed it.
It's like craving the silence. We don't get enough
Yeah, I'm like,
silence in this world. Yeah.
that was nice. Yeah.
Mhm. That's so funny. So so now you have this office, you're doing all these great things, you've got this amazing business, but you said you're getting rid of it. You're getting rid of the office. And I also know just from our communication, you are moving things into a more remote setting. So we kind of left off with the fairs and the in-person and the office. So tell us what happened since then. What's going on now?
Yeah, so I'm narrowing my focus down. So I am so right now where I'm at, I stopped doing one-on-one, like one-off consultations, because I would work with somebody for a few months and then they would do great and then they fall off. Life happens, things happen. And then they have to schedule a follow-up and they're like, I was doing great, but now I'm not. And it is about making it a habit. And so the best way that I found to do that, and also a lot of underlying patterns that I see, it just in my personal, the people that I've worked with, is there's usually some underlying trauma.
Mm,
And so, okay, so my yoga teacher training, because of COVID, and then also my teacher's husband committed suicide. And so
mm,
he passed. And so by the time I went down for that immersion, it was a trauma informed yoga teacher training. And then I graduated and I went to my first Colorado Ayurvedic Medical Association conference, which is
mm.
way more fun than it sounds. It sounds kind of like stuffy and boring, but they're a blast. But it was trauma informed. And I said, oh, it's a blast. And now I'm saying it's trauma informed. It can be both. It was.
Yeah.
And so I've seen this happen. And I feel like, with my history and the things that I've worked through, that it's a part of my calling. And that's what, when we started the conversation, I said, going deeper is, kind of where I need to go. But one of the keys that, has been found in a lot of studies to help people actually overcome trauma and have a more fulfilling life is having support, having groups, having support. And they look at that as, is it family support, whether it's friends, whether it's, so having a community. And so building community is a huge part of what I'm doing, because that piece also prevents us a lot of times from loving ourselves enough to go to the gym. It doesn't have to be going to the gym. I'm just using that as an example.
Mhm.
Or to eat the way that, or listen to our bodies just to know what we need at the time.
Mhm.
And a lot of that does stem from some sort of trauma, big or small. A lot of it does. So that's why I'm transitioning over to this group cohort where it's going to be, where it's the year long. versus just kind of working with me one-off. But also I get to have that more one-on-one contact along with the group coaching. So I'm having more touch points with people to make more of a difference. So I've cut the one-on-ones in that way out. And so everybody that wants to work with me is going into here. But I was also doing, and I still will do body work. So Ayurveda has body work that you can do. So circulatory lymphatic massage called Abhyanga, which also I teach people how to do to themselves. And there's another one called Shirodar, which is kind of like a brain massage. For me, it reminds me of a Dumbledore in Harry Potter when he takes his thoughts out of the pensieve and puts them in. I don't know if you've seen that part, but
I
it's
think
like,
so, yeah.
Yeah, this like relieving of the thoughts, like just, but I've had some people say, oh, it's like years of meditation, but it's a steady stream of warm oil and it goes on these certain points on the head. So there's bodywork pieces that I love doing because it's meditative for me and the person feels so amazing afterward. But I'm dropping that down to doing them just one time a month instead of throughout, which is what I'm primarily using my office for right now. And I'm doing that so I can focus on moving more to this online space and more to this remote space where I can still have things in person, still have events where people can get together and have more bonding and more connection and have some of those growth leaps like you were discussing a minute ago. But right now I've seen that my focus has been scattered. And so letting go of my office, cutting back on some of my the contract positions that I have been doing. And then the PRN, still doing that because I really love being there and working with people in that capacity, but cutting it back to where it's maybe only twice a month. So I can hone in more on this space because this is where I feel is going to make the biggest impact, where I see is going to make the biggest impact and the most difference for people. Yeah.
I love that. So now you're just moving online, basically online cohort community style. And that way you can give them more support. So if I know you said it's a little bit like it's the Ayurvedic, did I say that right? Ayurvedic medicine, that type of a thing. But there's also trauma associated with it, trauma informed and helping people release that. So what would be like if somebody was to get help from you or if they were seeking help, what would that look like? Are they seeking help from the emotional baggage of their trauma? Is it like body sensations? Like what do your typical clients come to you looking for?
A lot of times it's a physical manifestation of some sort of imbalance. Now, I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychologist. And so if I've had people come to me and say, some heavy things that I'm like, okay, you might want some counseling because there is a scope of practice piece, right? But also helping them bring into balance some of those things and looking at what else they're doing. So looking at the mind piece just by itself, there's, you have depression, you have anxiety, kind of this pendulum that will swing back and forth for people sometimes. And I've had a lot of people on ashwagandha because that's like the thing right now. Ashwagandha.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So here's the thing with ashwagandha. It is an adaptogenic insofar as whether it's anxiety or depression, it can kind of help balance those things. But if you're having hot flashes, you're having acid reflux, you're having skin rashes, or you're just feeling overheated, ashwagandha is not so great because it is a heating herb. So then there's like shatavari, which is a more cooling herb and kind of it does the same thing. And it's better for what. So I'll have people come to me, I have a lot of anxiety, but I'm taking ashwagandha for that. Or I've had people come and say, I'm not apathetic. I'm not depressed, but I just don't have joy in my life. So I've had people come for that purpose. I've had people come because they had osteoarthritis or bursitis in their hips, autoimmune diseases, things like that. That's what I've had my one-on-one clients the most. I am trying to work on, like I said, I'm trying to learn this business piece. And so fine-tuning my marketing language. And so making it to where it's more relatable, because some of the things when I get deep into it, it can be too deep for just like a YouTube or a social media post. And so I target a lot of energy and metabolism, but it is a lot deeper than that. So the energy metabolism, a lot of that is that diet lifestyle routine, but there's a lot of chronicity of disease that kind of shows up, and it's because of different imbalances, and not just of the mind, but just in the body and the routine. Whether you're eating too many salads, which are dry and they're cold and they're what we call vata aggravating. So vata is this energy of movement. So if somebody's traveling and they're eating a bunch of salads and they're like, why am I constipated? That can have a huge part of it, so it's like it's kind of nuanced like that. So that's why working more one-on-one and having those once a month one-on-ones along with the coaching in a group is really helpful, along with just getting the some of the principles that are able to be universal across the board.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So kind of going back to some like that marketing angle, how are you getting your clients? Is this like going to those fairs and meeting people? Are you doing ads? Are you doing social media? What does that look like typically?
So going to the fairs, which are the more local, right? So that's been my focus, is going to the health fairs, going to different events that we have around the western slope of Colorado. However, I am trying to go more, like I said, online too, to where I can expand it to where it's not just Western Colorado. So for that piece, and this kind of goes into my being okay with taking it slow, because I want to spend this time with my daughter. So going into the online piece, I'm trying to start doing more YouTube videos. That's something that is it's there. It's like a thing that I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do. And speaking to that a bit more. But I think I started to jump in. I was like, you know what? I think I need to wait just a little bit longer, because as she's getting older, and so I'm thinking August, I'm really going to start jumping back into that piece. And school, that platform is amazing. But actually being able to go in and, start making some posts to where people who are, and I noticed, so another thing I noticed is a lot of people that come to me are in some form entrepreneurial. So that's
Very
something I
cool.
kind of recognized only recently. And I was like, oh, I didn't see this before. And I recognized it when I did the realtor talk a couple weeks ago. And I was like, I am seeing this pattern. So that's something where I'm like, I can help there.
Yeah. That's
So
pretty cool. Yeah.
yeah.
I like that. That could be an interesting niche. Niching down.
I know, I'm entrepreneurial health. I know you and I
Yeah.
talked about, because you doing the YouTube cohort with you was
Mhm.
is really helpful. I got a ton from it.
Mhm.
And I don't think I told you this, but I went through, and it was where you had us ask a bunch of questions.
Mhm.
And kind of like, or have had AI ask us a bunch of questions and then plug that in.
Yep.
And so now I'm like, okay, I'm just shifting all of these things. And so I'm kind of redefining this marketing piece. And yeah, like it's a constant learning. It's a constant learning thing, but it is a huge work in progress. It is definitely I would say probably my weakest point is the marketing piece.
Yeah. I think that's pretty common. A lot of people, when they go into business, it's like you go into business because you're passionate about the subject. The business piece is all unlearned right now. So that's very, very common. How do you feel like you juggle? I know you said you're kind of taking a little bit of a hiatus right now until August. But how do you feel like you juggle now, having the business, having older kids, they're doing sports, they're all, doing all those things. How do you feel like you're juggling that now?
Honestly, I'm really excited that my 10-year-old is starting baseball, because where he practices, there's this really awesome playground, and all of these parents are coming and they're bringing their younger kids. And so when we went for his tryouts, my daughter was just over there, she got stuck one time hanging, because she was like, there's like this little rope ladder thing, and she was on top of it, and she was like, Mom, help. Well, I had sprained my ankle the day before. And so I'm like trying to limp over to her, and this other mom turns around and like rescues her, but she didn't need me otherwise. And she's very much like, we're very close, and she is very attached. And it's kind of a sad, like, oh, she did, but at the same time, like letting her flourish. And so I'm kind of excited to see like how much work can I do when he's at practice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to experiment with it, but also doing it without being attached. So
Mhm.
not getting stressed, like I'm trying to do this, and because it
Yeah.
can go the other way. And I recognize that from past
Mhm.
experiences, right? Like we talked about with like meditating, or kids coming on cameras, or it
Mhm.
happens. And so yeah,
I
so I'm kind of excited about seeing how baseball practice goes.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, how do you feel, when when you're at places like that and you see all the other moms? Do you feel like you ever like, if you were to sit there and work on a laptop, do you feel like you would feel awkward or uncomfortable about that with the other moms there? Do you feel like you ever get judgment for being an entrepreneurial mom?
Hmm. I know. So we have this place called Bananas here, which has it's got like an arcade, and then it's got a swim area, but it has a bouncy house.
Mhm.
And I've taken Cedar there and tried to let her play there, and tried to work. And I find my biggest struggle, I look around and I see all the other moms on their phones. So I don't worry
Mm,
about that part so much, because that's kind of society now.
mm,
But I find my struggle with it is that I want to watch her. And
mm.
I bet that's going to happen with baseball now that you mention it, because when I went for tryouts, I just wanted to watch my son. Like,
Yeah.
and so that being more my struggle and my pool
Mhm.
than worrying about the other moms. I mean, but I do think that looking at the other moms and seeing that they're all on their phones, I'm like, well, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not, it's not
Yeah.
a judgment against to them, or it's
Yeah, yeah.
not that. It's just that, like, I'm like, oh, this is our society now.
Mhm.
I want to watch them. Like, I want to see this. They're only going to be doing this for so long, and I don't want to miss out on it. And
Mm.
so, yeah, I can see that being a struggle. So
Yeah.
now that we mention it, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
There's always the struggle, right?
yeah. I've thought about trying to get up, and it's not worked for me so far. But trying to
Mm,
get up at like 5 a.m. so I could get my work
mhm.
done before they wake up.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm I'm not that early of a morning person. I'm not. I do my best work in the morning when I get up, and I am like a morning person now in life, but yeah, not that early. And
Yeah.
usually if I do wake up that early, one of them wakes up and comes in there anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna say, I tried to do that, was it a little under a year ago? And it lasted a good two weeks. And I
Mm,
loved those 2 weeks, actually. I'm not a morning person, but I was like, I love getting up early before everyone's awake and doing my things. And then, of course, the mama's boy started waking up because he was like, "You're not sleeping in with me. What's going on?" So he
mhm.
started waking up early, and I'm like, "Okay, well, what's the point of waking up early if everyone's gonna wake up with me?" So
Yeah.
stopped that because that wasn't working anymore. Like, I'm
Well,
not
I
gonna
tried
wake up at 5 AM if you're all gonna wake up at 5 AM. What's the like, what's the point of
exactly.
that?
Like that's obviously not the time. Um, and then I tried to go at one point. I tried to go to the gym, because they
Mhm.
had 2 hours where they would, you had the your kids in the kids
Yeah,
club or whatever it is, and so I was trying to go, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to work out for an hour, and then I'm going to use the next hour to do work.
yeah.
And then I didn't want to bring my laptop into the gym, into the lockers, and then I was like, well, then if I do, the really small, like few little tables, and where am I going to do this at? And also after a workout, I was like, I don't want to, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I find it's best, just for me, it's best just
Mhm,
doing it. Now I'll plan like dinners earlier or things like that, that I'll
mhm,
adjust. But yeah, if my husband can take the kids to do something, that's great.
mhm,
Otherwise, yeah, they're just going to be here with me. And it's helped, like my daughter, it's helped her kind of learn boundaries a little bit more
mhm,
too. Like, okay, I'm going to be doing this work, and you get to do this. And she's like, okay, this is, she's a little more, if she knows like I'm on a call, she really wants to come say hi. She
mhm,
still does. And so sometimes I'll tell her, okay, at the end of the call, you can come in and come say hi,
mhm.
especially if it's somebody that she's met before and she knows. So that's
Yeah,
kind of like a little reward, but respecting boundaries, or I'm not above bribing. Bribing works
yeah,
great. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
How do you feel like, so being an expert in some of this, alternative health and stuff like that, how do you feel like that's affected the way that you parent? Do you feel like that is like you're a totally different parent and everything is based around what you've learned?
Well, I wouldn't say everything is based around what I've learned, but yes. Um, so I quit eating McDonald's when the twins were little because I started feeling sick every time I'd eat McDonald's.
Mhm.
We'd still eat Burger King, we'd still eat other fast food. But then gradually, like I kind of started cutting some of those out. I grew up on sodas. Like I drank sodas all day. That's that was life.
Yeah.
And I cut out sodas and I lost a bunch of weight. Surprise. But I would drink sweet tea, and now I don't even. It's on sweet tea and like water for the most part. We'll have birthday parties and we'll get LaCroix, and the
Mhm.
kids are super excited about LaCroix. Like, well, that's good. Once in a while, my 10-year-old really wants a root beer, so he'll get a root beer if we go eat once in a while.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like birthday parties and things like that. I'm like, well, I don't want to feed them, this processed stuff. Like, let's do something that, it might be like, I don't know. I can't come up with an example off the top of my head, but it might not be the healthiest thing, but it's not like super processed. Like I made it, whatever it is,
Yeah.
it might be.
Yeah.
So there's things like that. But we had one of our friends, when my 10-year-old was, oh gosh, he was like 4.
Mhm.
He was young. He was like toddler age. And one of our friends, we'd gone back to Texas to visit, and he was like, "Do you guys want to go to McDonald's? You want to go get a Happy Meal?" And they're like, a what?" It was like, my kids don't know what a Happy Meal is.
Yeah.
Am I failing or am I doing this right? What, what's going on here? And so my 15-year-old now, though, he talks about, he's like, he'll go to school and he's like, I like the foods you make better, Mom. They're feeding us this and that. And but then he had a period where he was drinking, like he's going to the he has off campus lunches this year. And so he was going to the gas station and getting energy drinks. And I'm
Mhm.
not like, you can't do this. It's not like that. It's just like you make your choices. This is what I cook. This is what I feed you. This is what I buy for the house. No, we're not going to have sodas in the house.
Mhm.
But you're welcome to do what you're going to do. Like
Mhm.
my 10-year-old, his parents will call and be like, can he have a soda? And I'm like, he's with you. Like this, that's up to him.
Yeah.
I remember one time they took him to eat. The 10-year-old, one of his friend's parents took him to eat at Burger King, and then he said something like, "Well, I don't ever eat Burger King." And so when they dropped him off, he came up and he goes, "I'm so sorry. We took him to Burger King. We didn't know." And I was like, "Thanks for feeding my kid." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's this balance of like teaching
Mhm.
them, but then also like they have to make their own choices. So yeah, I mean they are a lot healthier, I think, than what they would be with my twins. Um, it was every morning they had like a handful of candy because that's how I could get them dressed.
Oh my gosh.
And so so with these ones, now I'm like, okay, if you get your chores done, I'll make cookies.
Mhm.
So it's same but different. Like
Yeah.
because the homemade cookies are a lot healthier for them than the processed candy. So there's a good
Yeah.
example for what I was looking for earlier. But yeah, so but not only that, but I had one of my mentors said one time, she goes, the way that you really know. Okay, I'm gonna ask you the question and just want to kind of see what comes
Yeah.
up for you. Um, how do you know that you actually have a habit fully ingrained?
When it happens instinctually.
Hmm. But then something happens, like you go on vacation or you go on a trip and then something it doesn't happen sometimes.
I guess I would say that you don't feel bad about it.
Hmm.
Because like if something if something crazy happens, like I know that I can just go back to my habit, right? Like I don't feel bad about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that was kind of my thought. But she said the way that you know that you really have a habit, that it's not just a habit anymore, it's just a part of life,
Mhm.
is when the people around you start doing it.
Mm.
And I thought, well, that is so
That's true. I
interesting.
wouldn't have even thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but being a mom and having all these little creatures that mimic you,
Mhm. Yeah.
like they do sometimes. So I'll
Yeah.
see it with like my 15-year-old, I'll see my 10-year-old, with tongue scraping. Like I'm
Mhm.
scraping my tongue, and like my daughter, like she's got to brush her teeth. I had to fight so hard to get my boys to brush their teeth, and
Mhm.
it was a habit, but they weren't in the bathroom with me all the time like she
Mm.
tends to be for some reason. And
Yeah.
so, but she sees me brush my teeth, scrape my tongue, and do like my whole morning routine and stick oil in my nose and, all the
Yeah.
kind of weird stuff that I do. And she's like, oh, I want to do that. I want to, I want to know about
Yeah.
that. And she started doing some of the things like she's like, you have to drink warm water when you first wake up. I want mommy water. That's what she calls it,
Mm.
mommy water. And I mean, it's just
So
warm
cute.
water. It's just to start your digestion first thing in the morning. And she's like, I want mommy water.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, it's become part of her routine. And it's because she asked, not because I said, oh, you need this.
Mm.
So yeah, so it's definitely affected how I
Yeah.
parent.
That's so sweet. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
No, that's so true. It's so funny. I remember we're a very alternative, naturally minded place as well. And my my oldest, I remember there was one time I was taking her to the grocery store and she was like 2 years old. And we're going through the grocery store. You know how like kids when they see something that they want at the grocery store, they like throw a fit until they have it, right? And
Mm.
usually it's like cereal or Pop Tarts or something that's bright and colorful and has cartoons on it. And my my daughter, she was 2 years old and she was throwing a fit because she wanted an English cucumber. And I remember being like low key proud. You know, like the grocery store, and she's like not having it, throwing tantrum because I'm like, you can't eat it now. We have to wait till we buy it, you know? And she's like, she just wanted it now. And I just remember being like, I can't even be mad at you because like you want a cucumber. Like
Yeah.
but she also I grew up on soda as well, so I totally know what you're talking about. Like that's all I drank.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't drank soda in, oh my gosh, at least like 20 years. And my kids have never had soda. And so that was another thing. I remember I was going through the aisle with her and, through the aisle that had like all the sodas because it also had like a juice that I wanted to get down there. So we're going through and it has all the sodas. And I remember her eyes got really wide. She goes, oh my God. She goes, look at all the kombuchas. She thought the soda was kombucha. I was like,
I love that. Oh, that's
that was
cute.
so funny too. But no, that's
Yeah.
so true. It's like when when the people around you start adopting the things that you're doing, it's like that you do it often enough that people now associate that with who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do. I see them making better choices as a whole. My 10-year-old, he's he's like in this early rebellion stage, which is fine.
Yeah.
Like it's yeah. But then the 15-year-old, I'll see him prioritize like a healthier choice over
Mm.
something that's like maybe a little sweeter. But I loved your English cucumber. My daughter did the same thing with an orange.
Yeah.
And and then she always says, she sees me get a kombucha and she's like, can I have some of your bucha? I want some bucha. Mom, I
Yeah.
want your bucha.
They love it. It's so good.
A little bit. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay.
It's so funny. So
I
funny. So if you were talking to another mom who wanted to start making healthier choices in her household, what's some, kind of quick advice that you would give them? Assuming they're kind of consuming the standard American diet and lifestyle.
yeah. Um the I used to think that I was cooking at home because I was making hamburger helper and home style bakes. That's like a meal in a box that you just open up the cans and you put it in the oven and bake it. And you put like, they have biscuits that you mix with water and you put that on top and you put it in the oven. It comes out as biscuits and it's all in one box. And I thought I was cooking. Um, so my advice, and as I started going on my healthier journey and kind of learning, and it wasn't really about trying to be healthier, like fitter or, any of that. It was more just, oh, this is not even actually like supposed to be eaten. And I don't want to feed that to my kids. So finding your why would be the first thing. Like, what is your reason? Why do you want to try to start doing things healthier? And what is, is that like, is it because you want to look better or you want your kids to, have a healthier heart when they grow older? Or is it because you just like, you're like, I don't want to give them food that's not food. So I would say, what's the why? And then I would say, what can you make at home instead of buying at the store? So biscuits are really easy to make at home. I would say, instead of buying like a tin of biscuits that pops open. Try making biscuits at home. I would say try to see what you can make at home and make cooking like more of an experiment. Like do it for fun. But then also come up with 2 to 3 meals that you can just do really fast because you're going to have tired moments. And so like I a lot of times would give recipes of like, okay, so just cut up whatever, get some vegetables in your fridge. First of all, cut up those vegetables, throw them in about 6 cups of water and throw some coconut aminos in there and see what it tastes like. That's a quick go-to, bonus if you throw some rice in there. But that would be the first step is kind of more vegetables, less cans and boxes. That would be, but it's that I say that. And when you say quick advice, I feel like I don't like that because I feel like it's not doing justice because I say that and it sounds easy. It sounds easy if you've been doing it for a while. It sounds easy if you grew up that way. It sounds easy. But when you're in it and you're making those homestyle bakes and you're making those canned foods and you're making, the easy stuff, and then you transition over and you have no idea what to cook or what to do, how to make it easy enough for you to spend time with your kids, because time is a huge factor, and knowing exactly what it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So the quick advice is not such quick advice, but I would say focus on more fresh vegetables and cut out the cans as best you can would be the best start. But yeah, that's I feel like it's doing a disservice to say, oh, quick thing. Like it's, but I will absolutely, if anybody wants and they say, hey, you know what, I just want to talk to you and get a few ideas of how to get started, I will do a 20-minute free call and just say, okay, here's 3 recipes, work on those and then come back, like that.
Yeah.
Because it depends on where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on the tools that you currently have.
Yeah. I will say when it comes to cooking at home, this is something that we do that I think just helps a lot is I always make a lot more than I need to when I cook. Yeah. And that just helps because then we have a lot of leftovers that we can just heat up. Because like you said, there's going to be times where it's like, I am so busy. I don't have time to cook a meal, or I don't have time to bake something, or maybe I don't even have something in the fridge that's like ready to throw in the oven. But if I have leftovers, those are so much easier to just pop in the oven and people have leftovers, and it makes it so that you only have to cook, less time instead of having to cook every night for dinner. If you only have to cook 3 or 4 times, that's a lot easier for people, especially if you're not used to cooking.
Yeah. And
no, I love it. Like what? Yeah.
I have a lot of clients that are like, wait, what are you saying about leftovers? No, what? So in the fresher your food, the more vitality, the more life force, the more energy, and the more vitality and life it's going to give you. So the more recently the cow was killed, the more recently the bell pepper was picked, the more, the closer to alive that it is, the more life force you get by eating. And that's why we eat.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have leftovers, so there's certain things that it's like, if you really go into it really deep, the microwave kills that life force. And there's like Chinese medicine kind of has a bit of a same thing because it just heats up those molecules so fast, they get so agitated. And so it kills the life force. And then leftovers in Ayurveda, you're not supposed to have leftovers. So that being said, you're looking at coming from not even necessarily eating fresh food.
Yeah.
So I tell a lot of my clients, I'm like, well, try to eat them within 24 hours because that doesn't actually count as leftovers on the Ayurvedic. It's when it gets to 48 hours or longer. That's but then if you're freezing it too, and you're heating it up on the stove, heating it up on the microwave, or in the microwave, heating it up on the stove, heating it up in the oven, then that's okay. Just like if you can avoid a microwave, that's great. But if not, and that's the thing that's going to make it to where you're eating something that you cooked versus something that was, bought at the store. If using a microwave is going to make the difference between getting McDonald's and eating what you cooked, use the microwave, please.
Yeah.
So it's also, doing the best that you can without letting yourself get overwhelmed. That would be my advice. That would be the one thing I would say. Do the best you can without letting it overwhelm you. Take small steps. Reach out, pick one person or 2 people max to kind of like follow their guidance and their advice so you don't get overwhelmed, because there's so much information out there too. So
Yeah.
that would be my, yeah, that would
Yeah.
be my advice.
No, I love that. I love that because like health, that whole it's a spectrum, right? It's like you could go as healthy as possible and like literally grow your own stuff and have a farm and slaughter your own chickens and like go to that extreme. But like how many of us have the capability to do that, right? So it's like it's just that spectrum of like do as much as you can. So I love that. I love that. Especially if you're starting out. It's like you might not be able to do very much and that's fine, but like every time you move that needle closer, you get a new normal and then you can move it a little closer again and then you get a new
Yeah,
normal and then you move it a little closer and then over time that journey keeps evolving.
absolutely. Yeah. And I had a full, like, I walked into the grocery store one time as I started my journey, and I looked over at the organic produce, and like it's gassed, right? Like they gas it to kind of, and I looked over at the organic produce, I looked around the store, and I just felt so defeated
Mm.
and so overwhelmed. And so like I had to turn around and leave. And like I literally teared up and started crying. And I remember that. And I was like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? How are we supposed to eat? Everything is poison. I don't know what to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And I went through this like period of like, it's too much. So
Hmm.
that's why, like I say, don't let yourself get overwhelmed. But also, there's this in Ayurveda. A lot of times, the answer is it depends. What kind of food should I eat today? It depends. What kind of food should I eat in the summer? It depends. What kind of food should this person eat? What should I listen to?
Hmm.
What exercise is best for me? It depends. It depends. It depends, because it always depends on the person, because everybody does have a unique makeup, and so that's something that we look at in Ayurveda. Well, there's this guru, and he was talking one day and somebody asked him, they said, well, there has to be one thing that just everybody can eat no matter what. What's that one food? One food that just no matter who you are, you can eat it and it's good for you. And everybody expected the guru to say, it depends.
Hmm.
And he didn't. He said, there is one food anybody can eat and it's good for you. And it's the food that your mother makes you. And the reason is, when you're making food for your children, you're doing it to nourish them. It's an act of love. And so that energy that you're putting into your food, that intention that you're putting into your food, it
Hmm.
matters so much. Christianity, a lot of Christians will pray before they eat.
Hmm.
It's that intention over the food. A lot of Buddhist, Hindu, look at different of religions, like different spiritualities. They have that moment of pause and gratitude and appreciation because of what you're about to put into your body, and that energy that you're taking it in matters. And if you look at science, Western medicine, it's like, okay, if you're upset and you're stressed out, your body doesn't physically digest as well. So taking
Yeah.
those moments too, but also that energy that the person that made the food, it also you're taking that in when you're taking that food in.
Hmm.
So don't stress about it too much. Just do your best and do it with
Yeah.
love. If you think, oh, this McDonald's is going to nourish me because my mom thought I was really hungry and bought me McDonald's, you're going to digest it a lot better. It's going to be a lot better for you than, oh, this is all I have, but I'm eating this crap. That mindset matters.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
that's my little soapbox. Sorry.
No, I love it. That's what this show's all about. So I love it. Awesome. And we'll make sure that we have your links in the description as well. So if people want to get a hold of you, they will click those links in the description. But Tarna, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. Did you have any last things that you wanted to leave with our audience? It could be about entrepreneurship. It could be about, health, whatever kind of stirs up in your heart.
Mm, yeah. So I want to say, as far as entrepreneurship goes, that as a newer entrepreneur, if you're looking at doing an online space, I think that Michelle does an amazing job.
Well, thank you.
And and on the health front, focus on the things that bring you joy, whether that's the food that you're eating, whether that's the music that you're listening to, but especially with the people that you surround yourself with, because that has more of an impact on your health than you could possibly imagine. So, yeah, surround yourself with people that bring you joy and do the things that bring you joy.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you, Tarna.
Yeah, thanks.